Hey guys, how's it going? It's me coming on strong. Hope you guys are doing well, feeling blessed no matter where you are. If this is your first time meeting me, hi, my name is Ashley. I'm a higher self channeler. I have this channel, but I also have another channel, which is Up High Healing. I help those that are looking for some answers. I would say that I'm able to connect to anyone's higher self. I provide sessions where you become your own therapist in the sense that all the information I get is directly from your higher consciousness. So you're going to be the one providing yourself with those confirmations and answers. I'm just the medium that brings you there. If you do want to catch me on uphighhealing.com, you can book a session, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. For those of you that do know me, thanks for coming back again. If you do like what I'm saying, please like, please share, please subscribe. It is a free concept. It's a free, offering that doesn't cost you a dime. So what I'm coming on here to say today all got fueled by one of the instances I saw today. And I know I'm bringing in, life politics, etc., into where my energy associations come from. But I will say this. I will say that in this last little while, I've been hinted a lot to asking God many, many times, and not just now, but throughout my life, why did you choose the Chosens? What was it about the Chosens, or what was it that, brought God to us and us to God? And I can say this wholeheartedly growing up, and to say that where I came from, meaning like most of us, I feel like, came from other past selves or past lives. I don't mean we died. I mean, in a way, we were reborn into this world. And not to say that we were only Chosens or our star seeds, meaning that galactic persons here have genetic codings to other astral beings. I will also say that the Chosens may be those that were put in place here specifically from, let's say, an angelic lineage, or even those of maybe the Deva realm. But what I will say is that what makes this intrinsically interesting is that a lot of us have these parallels, and I'm going to talk about some of these parallels. Most of you, if you are debating if you are chosen, I'll say this. Number one, most likely you had Lord Yeshua and or God express this to you sometime in your life. Maybe it was one-on-one, maybe you got visited by angels, but most of you know that you're chosen, and it's because of the profoundness of a situation or situations you've had in your life. Two is the reason why I'm on this video in the first place, is that there is this instance that most of us are very well tied into Yeshua. I've been noticing this with a lot of Chosens, that a lot of you think and believe that you have a connection to Yeshua that is really profound. I actually even saw one of my brothers on YouTube believing that he himself was Yeshua. And I can't knock this person, and I've seen this with other Chosens too, having this strong bind and tie. And it's not to say that I don't sympathize, because I'm right there with you. About 13 years ago, I was under that same situation, and I didn't recognize what it was. So if you are someone that does feel you're chosen, and you're like, why do I feel like I've got so many ties to Yeshua? I want to share this little tidbit of a story, because I think this is something that might help. For example, when I was 18 years old, I'm almost 40, this year I'll be 40, I was given this number, 316. 316. It was everywhere I went. Now, what it was referring to, I had a angelic being come and tell me, or a messenger actually say that they were the messenger, and that I should look for the passage and read what it says. And the reading was, God so loved the world, so he sent his only begotten son. Now, you can imagine at 18 to 20 something years old, as I am reeling in this number, one would think, oh my God, is this message trying to say that I am Yeshua? Is this message trying to say that I'm going to have to carry this? You have to know that if you are feeling this right now, at the time that I engaged with it was 13 years ago, when there was nobody on YouTube talking about this. Barely anybody at all. Let alone aliens, let alone God, let alone Chosens, let alone any of this stuff. So I was freaking out. And I was blessed by Yeshua himself, who stepped into my friend one night, years later, years after I was all mentally panicked for a very long time, believing that I was going to have to take on this role. And trust me, I was hella scared and hella intimidated because, things didn't turn out so well for Yeshua the last time he showed up. So Yeshua stepped into my friend, and I knew that it wasn't my friend because I met many messengers, I've met many walk-ins, and I knew it was Yeshua based on what he said to me. What he did was he touched my solar plexus. He opened it up like a big magnolia flower. And he looked me dead in the eyes and he said, if I am here, then you are not. So he put me at tremendous ease because for many, many years, I thought I was going to have to carry that cross. So if you are chosen and you're feeling like, why do I have all these parallels? Like I was seeing chosen say like, oh, my name starts with these initials, just like Yeshua's did. Even though Jesus Christ is not his name, because there were no J's in the Hebrew language, but I understand the person's pain. I had seen other chosens that were talking about the similarities of the birth, about the dates, etc. And I do want to say this, is that your attachment to Yeshua is real. Your attachment to why you think you're walking through the same path is because that's what's happening. We're not saying that we are Yeshua, but we are the embodiments of those soldiers and or workers and or light beings that chose to do this path, to follow suit with Yeshua. So if you are someone who feels like you're very strongly tied, or you feel like you're taking on Yeshua's path here, please know that is a very common chosen trait. The next one I'm going to talk about is something that is near and dear to my heart, and I feel like is happening more and more and more, and is becoming more and more apparent and bringing forth to light Matthew 16. Now, I'm not a Bible thumper. I do bring in the Bible because I do think there's a lot of clues and a lot of hints from Yeshua especially about what's going on for us as the chosen. And even starseeds, because starseeds are a part of the Christo consciousness as well. That's, most dimensions kind of fall into that. And if they're not there yet, they're aspiring. That's why we're ascending. We're all ascending as beings to try to be like the Christed consciousness. So it's not like just humans are trying to do this. Galactically, we're trying to do this. So I hope you understand. But Yeshua in Matthew 16 was talking about the chosen and how those that were last are going to become the first, and those that were first are going to become the last. And this always stuck out to me and has been sticking out to me more and more and more because of all the topsy-turvy shit that's going on in the world. Because things that made sense at one point in our lives don't make any sense anymore. And things that should make sense aren't making any sense and are being revealed as such. Like things like the law. In one instance, the law is working, and then in another instance, the law is not working. So there is this sense of bias in something such as law, but I'm just trying to use that as an example because the reason this all started, and I'll explain why after I finish this bit, was all to do with that concept of last becoming first. Most chosens, I will honestly say, from what I've realized, because I ask God all the time, as I was not so much on this type of my journey, but in the beginning, 13 years back, was, why would you choose me? Why would you choose me? And at the time, I thought I was a singularly soul-only person because the internet wasn't really kicking back then. So you couldn't really connect with everyone. We had MSN Messenger. It wasn't really a thriving plethora that it is now. So I would honestly say that most of us chosens, I think, were given downtrodden lives, very difficult lives to navigate, probably broken homes, broken families, lots of death, lots of destruction, probably lots of illness. Maybe we came from single parent families, or a lot of despair when it came to monetary situations. Maybe we weren't really the richest people. Maybe we came from middle class to almost poverty to impoverished. So the thing is that I notice, and this is not just me, I do watch a lot of different persons. I know there's a lot that claim they're chosen, but I tend to gravitate towards the ones that make the most sense, that follow suit, that I can notice. And another one of those suits is that we were put in these really dank, dark, abusive lifestyles simply so we could tread through the darkness and come out and understand the darkness wholeheartedly. Yeshua, even in his time, was spending time with the lepers, with the prostitutes, and the downtrodden. And people couldn't understand that. You know what I mean? In our experience as chosens, we were probably brought up with the downtrodden. Like, I know, for example, I was surrounded by, in my city, it was a very gang affiliated city when I was growing up. You couldn't go to certain parts of the city without claiming who you knew to even give you some type of free passage in certain places. So the thing is that I saw a lot of violence, a lot of crime. My family was, not just my immediate, but my bigger outsourced family on either side had a lot of emotional damage, and or they were abusive as all hell, or they had a lot of vice problems. And I noticed that a lot of chosens are describing this, the ones that do talk about their true life. And most of us do talk about our true life or our experiences solely because we know that that's the type of connection we have to each other, is that we actually have gone through a lot of messed up shit. Now, aside from just the empath and narcissist dynamic, aside from the scapegoat dynamic, aside from the martyrdom that a lot of us go through in our lives, we were always last. It didn't matter if we were good looking. It didn't matter how intelligent most of us were. And I would say that's another trait I notice about chosens. They tend to be highly intelligent. They don't make sense because on average, you look at them and you're like, well, they have all of the components. Why are they last? Okay. The reason why we were last is because fundamentally our soul came from a different place that doesn't make sense in a place like this or in a matrices like this. Some say that it's the devil that runs this matrices. And I wouldn't even go as far as to talk about the devil, because I do feel like, yes, there is always going to be this ulterior force to the good in a dual system, in a dimension such as this, as a planet such as this. But do I think that there's a horned entity sitting on a chair going, wah ha ha? No. Do I think that there's an opposing force that creates the matrices that we see here? Yes. I think it was designed this way so that persons that, manipulate, people that walk all over people, abuse people, hurt people, step over people to get anywhere in their lives, tend to flourish in a place like this. It seems like the more negative you are, or the more, dark you are, the further you get. Now, what's interesting is that chosens, like I said, since we were born, we tend to be freedom fighters. We tend to be truth sayers. We tend to tell it like it is. We tend to stick up for the small little guy. Like, we're that one that's like, defending, the little guy in the schoolyard. Even though you yourself, like, I used to be a bully to the bullies. I'll just give you an example of what I mean. But I feel like we never computed in a world like this. It was never meant for us to compute. So therefore, in a world that we cannot compute in, we were last. And then most of us grew up in these downtrodden places, couldn't understand how we could even think to be chosen, because what were we shown? Oh, only the pious get this. Only the good people get this. Only those that, seemingly look perfect on the outside would be endowed this gift. But that's not how you would ever be able to work a matrices like this. One would have to know their enemy perfectly in order to really, really crush the enemy. And what I mean by the enemy is the darkness. What I mean is why we were given these lives that we were. Why we had to go through gangs, why we had to go through drug affiliations, why we had to go through horrible friends, mistreating families, etc., was so that we could know our enemy better. We could be wiser to the fact. In an instance and in a time where they or it ruled, we would always be last. But as God has shown, as this energy shifts and it starts moving towards the other side of that scale, us who come from a soul beginning of not computing with this world will become the first. We'll be the first to see those that are lying. We will be the first that will understand where this wave is going. And what's ironic is that because we spend so much time in the darkness, we'll be able to tell who's a false light right away. Because that's even scarier than gangsters. That's even scarier than criminals. False light is even more terrifying. And what I mean by false light is that there are those out there, preachers, etc., persons that run huge organizations, prying on people's want to understand spirituality, prying on people's wants to understand God or Yeshua, saying that follow me and I'll bring you there, which is a complete lie, because you can only find it through God, through Jesus, technically. You know, they always say Yeshua was the way and the light. So all these other priests say, oh, come follow me for, this meditation that's going to bring you to God, or come follow me and you do this. When people are using and manipulating and abusing spiritual wisdom over those, that's even more scary. And what brought me here today was this whole thing that I saw, and I'm sure a lot of you saw, with what Elon Musk is trying to pull off right now with Trump. So why this all started is because I was like, I'm like, here's Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, offering $1 million to those that support Trump. If that's not collusion, I don't know what is. But this is my point. He seemingly is doing something good, but it's for a different and more self-righteous nature, meaning that he's going to push forth the candidate he sees fit. He might benefit from more government contracts this way because the Democrats have given him a hard time here and there. And most likely he's going to really show us what democracy really means when somebody could just buy out an election. But at the same time, no offense, Mr. Trump himself was the person who kind of laid the foreground for criminal activity and decimation of the Constitution in his first round. So the thing is that he laid the foundation for this type of, situation to even occur. However, what is very interesting about this character Trump, and I still can't place my finger on him, what I do know is he's a kink in the chain. What I do know, he's a double-edged sword. And the reason why I say this and how this whole thing about getting to know the last and the first was because as this energy shifting, this representation is found in Trump. Because Trump and almost all of the cronies that were ever around Trump, if you really look at it, almost everyone that worked with him in the past to bring him where he is today is not standing beside him anymore. They're either in jail or have heavy lawsuits put against them. Speaking of which, look at poor Giuliani, who's literally left with $0 after this whole lawsuit. And it's not to say that more of his cronies haven't gone down with that shit. Yet, the man who put them there, the man that they were all defending, still stands strong, still hasn't been indicted, still hasn't been brought to justice, so to speak. And yet, all these other persons have fallen away. And then there's been people, let's say, like Tucker Carlson, etc., that looked really shitty when he first started his career. And because of people like Trump, he managed to find his soul and got out of things. And look at his career now. So I'm going to say this to Elon. You're a very, very brave cat. Because almost everyone who has stood up with Trump, somehow Trump manages to showcase who they're working for. Are they working for the light, or are they fake light? Are they somebody who's a liar and a criminal at heart or in their soul? Because if they are, Trump's going to expose it. Because almost everyone that was good in their heart launched off of Trump, and everyone that was bad and evil fell because of Trump. So there's something about Trump that's very unique, and I don't know what it is. But what I can say is that as this energy is happening, so many more things are overturning. Is overturning in Hollywood. Like, look at Puffy. We all knew he was a criminal, but until this point in time, the energy wasn't right enough for someone like him to get exposed. It's scary to expose someone like Puffy. He has a lot of ties to the darker world that I was talking about. And that's why I feel like the Chosens are so important. We spent enough time traversing these darker places. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if some of you came out of cults, beat cults, meaning that you were able to see through the cult and maybe get others out of it too. And I'm trying to say is that when I think of people like Puffy, how, we all thought he was a criminal, and it was only until this time that things are being exposed. More people are going to be exposed. More and more and more and more. Elon's not only the only billionaire that's involved in the politics. There are, those billionaires on the other side defending the Democrats as well. I personally feel like all these billionaires are getting a little scared because if Trump gets into power, he was friends with all of those people, you know, like Weinstein, Epstein, all the Steens, all the lists. So it wouldn't surprise me that there are those parties on the other side that are trying to fight him off too, simply because of how much he knows and how much pull he has. And that's probably why he's still not in jail till this day. Because there's enough judges out there that don't want their dirty laundry exposed to the world. And there's something so unique about Trump, which is so unique about us too. Because the thing is that we, as those truth bearers, we, as those justice and freedom fighters, tended to always be exposing others around us since the get. That's why we were probably put in cults. That's why we were probably put with shady people. That's why we were exposing things the whole way through. Yes, we were participating in it. Obviously, you have to, because how else are you going to acclimate in a world that wasn't designed for you? You were someone that had to blend in, chameleonize with a world that was never going to see fit for you. So as this energy changes and as God becomes more known and present in our every day of our lives, the first are going to be the last. And the last, aka us, are going to be the first. So that's all I wanted to share today. These are some ties that most Chosens have. This is where we see our parallels. And I wanted to say that I love you guys all, but we came from very dark beginnings. I mean, I was the type of person that was a criminal practically all through my high school career, to the point that I didn't even get to go to my prom. Okay? All through my 20s, I got hated profusely by women, to the point that I was just a face that they loved to punch. In my 30s, I ended up exposing, I don't even know how many firms for, just their Employment Standards Act here in Toronto. And I also championed a lot of people breaking free from a lot of other lawyers, and not to say, but not the most decent people. Almost every, and I would even say in my earlier days, before even high school, I was the mediator between two adults and most of my family, because every time my family got together, there was some fight breaking out, some drugs being smashed, something being broken, a bunch of drunks, a bunch of fighting. And I had to weather that storm my entire life. And I had to find a way to be who I am. And you guys had to find a way to be who you are amongst all that chaos. So the next time you feel like you're not worthy, or the next time you feel like you can't be chosen after all the stuff you've seen, I've seen murderers and I've seen those murdered. I've seen those that stab. I've seen people with guns. I've seen drug dealers. I've done drugs. I've, been a part of different things in my life that I'm not proud of. But at the same time, the reason why I feel like I was immersed in all of these different walks of life and all of these different downtrodden people is so that I would know and grow the discernment to know who's right and who's wrong. There's something scarier about a false light in this world, because the false light is harder to detect. The spiritual narcissist is harder to detect, because they're the best manipulators, because they're shadowed and showing themselves as the light. So I think in this time, when there are Trumps floating about, when there are these double-edged swords, when the false light is all around us and we can't determine what's right and what's wrong, us Chosens had to tread through the darkness to understand it fully, so that will come the time that we have to decipher what's false light. We might be the first to do it. Have a good one, guys. Love you lots.